Smart Drivers, Rick with Smart Drive Test, talking to you today about Chapter 2 of the New York State CDL Manual. Chapter 2 is driving safely, and essentially the contents of Chapter 2 are what are included in PDIC course, Professional Development Improvement course, and we're going to go over that information today and give you more detail about those topics. Stick around, we'll be right back with that information. Hi there, Smart Drivers. Welcome back. Today we're talking about Chapter 2 of the CDL Manual, which is driving safely. And you can see here from the contents, there is a lot of information here in Chapter 2, and we're going to go over it fairly quickly. And I had a comment from Ayana over on the Facebook page there, and Ayana is working towards becoming a transit bus driver for New York City, and she needs to get her CDL license, and she was having some difficulty with this chapter, and I can understand. There is a lot of information in this chapter. So what I'm going to do is go through this. I'm going to go through it fairly quickly. If there's some of it that you already understand and you're familiar with, just look down in the description there. You can find the chapters, the different sections in Chapter 2 here, and just click to that part of the video and you can watch that section. So look down in the description there and you'll find that. Now, just before we get started here, Smart Drive Test helps drivers get a license regardless of class, whether that's car, truck, or bus. As well, we help veteran drivers to remain crash free. So if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. As well, hit that bell. That way you'll get instant notification when I get the videos up for you. So without further ado, we're going to get started here. Chapter 2 of the CDL Manual, and I'm going to be looking away from the camera because I've got this up on my computer screen and I'm just going to go through it. So the first section covers vehicle inspection. As you can see here, if I click on the screen, it'll actually put up where I'm pointing for you. So vehicle inspection, I'm not going to go over vehicle inspection because this is something that you're physically going to do for the purposes of doing your CDL manual. I will just highlight a few things. The first step that you need to do for the purposes of your pre-trip inspection is ensure that the vehicle is safe. If you're going to a driving school, they're going to have a safe place for you to do this. You're going to do your vehicle inspection around the vehicle in a counterclockwise direction. And the first step is to chock the wheels. Most of these vehicles, these CDL vehicles, are going to have air brakes equipped. So you're going to have to chock the wheels, get in the vehicle, make sure you have over 100 pounds of pressure in the system, and you're going to release the parking brakes on the vehicle so that there's air in the system. That way when you're going around the vehicle, you're listening, and you can listen for air leaks that may or may not be part of the pre-trip inspection. In other words, there's air in the system, and if there's a leak, you can hear it while you're going around the vehicle because sound is very important. All right, so different types of vehicle inspections. And just one other point that I will make is that over at the Smart Drive Test website, I do have a pre-trip inspection fast course, which gives you some information about the pre-trip inspection, some multiple choice questions about that. But there's also included in that is a form, which is the specific information that you need to complete a pre-trip inspection, exactly what you need to do for the purposes of a pre-trip inspection, what you need to check, what you're checking it for to see whether it's damaged or not, and whether the component is working, the action that you need to take, and the exact terminology that you need to say. So that's available over at the Smart Drive Test website, and have a look for that. And I'll put a description down in the description box there for that pre-trip inspection fast course that will guarantee that you pass your CDL pre-trip inspection and give you all the information that you need to do for passing your pre-trip inspection. So what to look for. So essentially, I'll put a video up here for you on pre-trip inspection, and this goes over the fundamentals of doing a pre-trip inspection for the purposes of your CDL license. Essentially, you need path of travel around the vehicle. You need to break the vehicle into sections, and each section you start top to bottom, left to right, and that will help you to memorize the pre-trip inspection. The other thing that I'll tell you is that go out and get some of those index cards. Write what you're supposed to inspect on the front of the card. So for example, the air compressor, and then on the back, write the details. So I'm physically inspecting the air compressor. Secure, not damaged, it's not leaking because it does have oil in it, and all the lines are attached and there's no apparent damage, and you can't hear any leaks. So that's physical inspection of the air compressor. Now when you get in the cab, the other thing that you could write on the back of that is, as part of the air brake pre-trip inspection, you need to test that the air compressor is working. The most common test for the air compressor to ensure that it's working is as you pump the system air pressure down to 45, when the system air pressure gets to 50, you start your timer. The air compressor has to build 50 to 90 psi within 3 minutes. That's the most common test. There are other tests for the air compressor, and you can look up those specific details where you are if you're not necessarily in New York State or whatnot, but it has to pump a set volume of air in a prescribed amount of time is the test for seeing if the air compressor on an air brake equipped vehicle is actually working. Okay, wheels and rims. Essentially, it's a visual inspection on doing the pre-trip inspection or the walk around of your vehicle. You're checking to see if a component is working, it's not damaged, and it's secure on the vehicle. So secure, not damaged, not leaking. Remember, 75 to 80% of the components on the vehicle have either fluid or air in them, so not leaking. Okay, it's not leaking air and it's not leaking fluid. Okay, brake drums and shoes. Those are essentially the pads inside of the drum, and the drum is outside. That's on a drum brake, so you're making sure that the metal's not cracked or broken or it's got fractures in it or those types of things, okay? You're looking for missing nuts and bolts and those types of things. Here I'm on this section here, steering system defects. So that's what you're talking about. Okay, steering wheel play. You grab the steering arm, give it a twist. No excessive play in the steering arm, and it tells you here specifically 10 degrees, approximately 2 inches of movement at the rim. So essentially, if you're on a big vehicle, on a bus, a transit bus, as Iona is doing, you're not going to be able to grab the steering arm because it's at the front and it's a weird kind of linkage. But if you're on a truck, you can actually grab it and test it. Okay, some of the suspension components, I know I've already been through this once. The question is name some of the suspension components. So leaf springs, shocks, coil springs, airbags, these are all part and parcel of the suspension. The axle, the hanger bearings, and you can see, or not the hanger bearings, the hanger clamps here. So this is what holds the leaf springs together. Those are some of the things that you're going to be talking about. The main spring is called the leaf spring here, and then it has some auxiliary springs and whatnot here. The front axle hanger. The hanger is what attaches the springs to the axle, and then it's leaf springs, and they're just metal leaves that are in there. So that's some of the things that they're talking about. Okay, so this is all this. Exhaust, secure, not damaged, not leaking. There's no missing bolts, no missing clamps, those types of things. Okay, emergency equipment. I know that this is one of the questions down here in the test. Essentially, for the purposes of a commercial vehicle, you must have a fire extinguisher that's charged. You must have triangles in the vehicle. We call them flares just for the purposes of the mnemonics and remembering it. However, they found out that flares with fire and flammable materials don't mix, so they just go with triangles. And then you have to have a first aid kit. So those are the three things. When we teach CDL drivers to do a pre-trip inspection, we teach them the 5 F's, which is fire extinguishers, flares, first aid, fluid, and flashlight. The fluids and flashlights are not required. However, most CDL vehicles will have those in it for the purposes of your pre-trip inspection. Okay, so approaching the vehicle, every time that you approach the vehicle, every time you walk away from the vehicle, you want to be looking and having a big general overview. Is there anything underneath the vehicle that wasn't there before? Is there any new damage to the top of the vehicle and those types of things? So every time you're leaving the vehicle or coming to the vehicle, you need to be looking and seeing if there's anything that has changed with the vehicle. Okay, check engine compartment, check the parking brakes on. You want to check all the fluids and check all the belts under the hood and those types of things. And again, if you go to a driving school, they're going to help you with all this stuff. When you fire up the vehicle, when you go in the cab, you want to check your gauges, and you especially want to check and make sure you have oil pressure, because if you don't have oil pressure, you need to shut the motor down right away because you'll blow up the motor if it doesn't have oil pressure. You also want to check engine oil temperature, not so much, but that's one of the secondary gauges. You want to check the coolant, you want to check volts, you want to check that your air pressure is rising, and you want to check the oil pressure. Those are your main gauges on the dash. Okay, warning lights and buzzers go out, so you turn the key to the on position, wait for the lights to all go out, and then start the vehicle up. The dash light should come on and then go off, especially the ABS light. Okay, so check all of that as well. And again, the pre-trip inspection form that I have over at the website will go through all of this and give you detailed explanation of what you need to check, how to check it, and what exactly to say. And as well, the pre-trip inspection form will give you a precise path of travel for the entire pre-trip inspection, but a path of travel also for each section of the vehicle. So in the cab, it gives you a path of travel. In the cab for the pre-trip inspection is probably the hardest. And the path of travel that I teach is up at the top, check the interior lights, check the visors, the glass, the dash, and then it's out. You check the doors, the mirrors, the windows. It's into the seats, check the seats and the seat belts, and then it's up. Check the lights, the dash lights, and signals, left, right, flashers, those types of things, dash lights, and all those types of things. You go across the dash. You check your windshield wipers, because oftentimes the windshield wipers aren't on the signals and whatnot. They're separate in many of these vehicles. You'll check the defrost and the heat. You're going to check the floor, make sure there's nothing on the floor. And for those of you, Iona, who's doing bus, you're going to go through the bus compartment, the passenger compartment, check all the seats, all the emergency exits. You're going to check all the stanchions, roof vents, and those types of things, and all the glass. You're going to come back up. Don't forget your emergency equipment if you're in a bus, because it's going to be inside. It might be down underneath, but you got to check that as well. So, as I said, the fast course that I have will give you that specific information and specific path of travel through the vehicle. Okay, so we're going through, and it has it all here in the CDL, the New York State CDL manual, but you're going to have to modify this for each vehicle, and you're going to have to do a running commentary when you do your pre-trip inspection test at the DOT. Okay, so just know that. Okay, pre-trip inspection, en route inspection. So they're talking about that as well, what you need to do for pre-trip, post-trip. You have to check, make sure that the vehicle is safe when you park it for the evening, or those types of things, and you have to report if there is any defects or damage to the vehicle so it can be repaired before it goes out again the next day. All right, so section 2.1, the pre-trip inspection. Test your knowledge. What is the purpose of a pre-trip inspection, or what is the most important reason for doing a vehicle inspection? The most important reason is to inspect and ensure that the vehicle is safe to be on the roadway. Okay, so what are the things you should check during a trip? You should check load security, check your passengers, check the freight, make sure all of that is safe, check tires, make sure that they're good, and you should monitor the gauges all the time. You need oil pressure during the entire trip. Okay, name some key steering system parts: the steering arm, the steering wheel, the gearbox, the steering linkage underneath the front end that turns the steering wheels, and those types of things. And as well, there's a connecting rod between the two axles. So those are some of the main steering components on a vehicle. Name some suspension system defects: broken or cracked leaf springs, hanger bearings are broken or cracked, the bolts are missing, airbags are not inflated, shocks are leaking because they have fluid in them because it's hydraulic. So the shocks could be potentially leaking. So those are some of the defects that you potentially could have on a suspension system. Okay, what 3 kinds of emergency equipment must you have? You must have fire extinguisher, triangles, and a first aid kit in the vehicle. As I said, there's 5, but those are the 3 that you absolutely must have. What is the minimum tread depth for front tires for other tires? It's 4/32 of an inch on front tires, and it's 2/32 of an inch on rear tires. Now, just saying that, know that you have to memorize those numbers. There's just no way around it. You have to know that. Most of the tires in this day and age are on, especially steer tires, are all going to have wear bars on them, and those are little rubber marks between the treads that will tell you how much tread you have left. And if it's down to the wear bars, then the tire is no longer safe and has to be replaced. All right, name some things you should check on the front of your vehicle during the walk-around inspection. You check the top of the vehicle, check to ensure that the clearance lights are working, no damage to the body, no new damage, no cracks or chips to the windshield, the mirrors are there, no damage to the mirrors and those types of things. Make sure the bumper is secure, the license plate is there. The CDL vehicle will have the decal on the front. The decal is valid, bumper is secure, look underneath the vehicle, and there's nothing hanging down and there is nothing leaking. What should wheel bearing seals be checked for? Wheel bearing seals should be checked that they're leaking. There's a bearing inside there and it's oil filled, and the reason it's oil filled is to lubricate and cool the bearing as the vehicle is going down the road. If that becomes broken and the oil leaks out, there won't be any lubrication in the bearing. It's going to heat up and you're going to cause damage to the vehicle, and it's going to be fairly expensive. So you have to look and make sure that there isn't any oil. And if there is leaking oil around the hub, you're going to get a spray pattern of oil around on the inside, and it's going to get really dirty. So just know that for the purposes of wheel bearing seals. How many red reflective triangles should you carry? You need a minimum of 3 reflective triangles in the vehicle. How do you test hydraulic brakes for leaks? push down on the pedal and hold the pedal, and the pedal should not drop after the initial push down on the hydraulic brake pedal. If it drops, it means there's a leak in the system. As well, the other way that you're going to check for leaks is you're going to look in the master cylinder, which is often located on a bus or a vehicle that has a hood that pops up, what we call a conventional. The master cylinder is going to be right in front of where the brake pedal is because it's attached to the brake pedal. And that should be full. If it's actually down, you might have a leak in the system somewhere. So there's a couple of ways that you can do that. Why put the starter switch key in your pocket during the pre-trip inspection? It's simply for safety, so that somebody else doesn't get in the vehicle and start it up and run over you while you're laying on the ground underneath the vehicle checking the brakes or whatnot. So that's the reason. Basic control of your vehicle, section 2. Here we go. To drive safely, you must be able to control its speed and direction. Safe operation of a commercial vehicle requires skill in accelerating, steering, stopping, and backing safely. Now, the last one is somewhat minor in terms of your DOT exam, but the other ones, managing space, managing speed, those are fundamental components of a road test. And essentially, it's speed management, space management, communication, and observation. And we're going to talk about those other things more so as we go through this. And different vehicles are going to be different in terms of accelerating, steering, and stopping, and backing. Okay, so all of those are going to take a bit of practice for you when you start to drive and get used to the vehicle and move it around. Okay, and steering and turning is probably the most important component that you're going to have for the purposes of a CDL test. So just know that's going to be your biggest challenge. For those of you driving non-synchro mesh transmissions, that's going to be another challenge, which unfortunately is going to eclipse the steering and the turning. It's going to take all of your energy in the first initial days of learning to learn how to drive a non-synchro mesh transmission. All right, backing safely. Okay, here are some of the tips that they give you in terms of backing safely. Start in the proper position, look at your path, use mirrors on both sides, back slowly, back and turn towards the driver's side whenever possible, and use a helper whenever possible. If you can get a guide, always use a guide, because there's just so many blind spots around a CDL, a large commercial vehicle, that it's difficult to see where all of those spaces are around your vehicle. So just know that. Okay, so they go into more detail here about backing. So start in the proper position, put the vehicle in the best position to allow you to back safely. And the setup in terms of backing up safely is probably 80% of backing up successfully. So look at your path, determine where you're going to go before you start backing up for the purposes of a test, or any other time you want to get out and do a walk around. You want to take note of where the obstructions are, if there's other traffic in the area, and those types of things. Okay, back slowly. If you back up slowly, it gives you more time to observe, gives you more time to maneuver the vehicle, and if something does happen, it gives you more time to react. And if you're unfortunate enough when you're backing up to hit something while you're backing up slowly, you're going to do less damage, so go slow. Okay, back and turn towards the driver's side. I can't stress this point enough. Always, always, always back from the driver's side. And in 98% of the cases, you don't have to blindside. Blindside is on the passenger side. And unless it is an absolutely dire emergency or there is just no other way to do it, always back from the driver's side. Because if you back from the passenger side, as soon as the vehicle turns, you can't see. And that's the reason it's called the blind side. Okay? Always use a helper before you start backing up with a helper. Couple of points that you need to say to the helper. First of all, you say if you can't see them in the mirror or they can't see you in the mirror, you can't see them. Okay, so as soon as they lose sight of you in the mirror, you can't see them any longer. So make that point, and as well agree on hand signals. And the one that you need to agree on is the stopping hand signal. And the stopping hand signal is essentially arms crossed up in the air, because that's the most important. You want to know that you need to stop, because if you're getting close to a building or other fixed object, you want to know that you have to stop. All right, so shifting gears, especially a non-synchro mesh transmission, you need to learn how to do that, and I'll put a video up for you on the theory behind shifting a non-synchro mesh transmission, and you can have a look at that. But essentially, for non-synchro mesh transmissions, you need to match three things. You need to match the gear, the engine speed, and the road speed. If those three things do not line up on a non-synchro mesh transmission, it's not going to help you. So there's two ways, and I know the question here, like I said, I've been through the chapter already. The question that they ask you, what are the two ways that you know when to shift? First is the tachometer, and the second one is the speedometer, because every vehicle has a manual that will tell you what the speed range is for each gear, and just have a look at that. All right, multi-speed rear axles and auxiliary transmissions. This is a fancy way of saying that on some of the bigger trucks that have 13 speeds in them, 15 speeds, or 18 speeds, they will have a splitter button on the side. The splitter button, if it's red, is a 13 speed, if it's blue it's a 15 speed, and if it's gray it's an 18 speed. So just know that in terms of multi-speed rear axles and auxiliary transmissions and those types of things. But a lot of the vehicles, especially for Ayana, who's driving a transit bus, you'd be driving an automatic vehicle. Most of the vehicles in the States, the larger fleets, are all going to be 10-speed transmissions, or they're just going to be automatics. Okay, retarders, engine retarders, commonly referred to as Jake brakes, because Jacobs was the first to market the engine retarder, and it just kind of became known as the Jake brake. I mean, it also helps the Jake and brake rhyme, and it makes it kind of cool. So be careful with engine retarders. It's kind of like cruise control. Be extremely cautious on slippery conditions, because if you lock up the back wheels, you could potentially cause the vehicle to go into a skid, and you potentially could lose control. And on skid pad tests, they have demonstrated that the rear wheels of a tractor trailer unit locking up is much more dangerous than the steer tires locking up. And it's not the same with a transit bus, which is what Ayana is doing. However, you don't want the steer tires to lock up and start coming around. You need to get those wheels spinning again so that you can regain control of the vehicle. And if it does go into a skid, simply get your foot off the throttle, get your foot off the brake, steer the vehicle, and look in the direction that you want to go. So questions here in section 2 and 2.3. Why should you back towards the driver's side? Because when you go around the corner, you can look out the window or your side window, and you can actually see where the vehicle is going. You can see the rear of the vehicle. If you go around to the passenger side, as soon as that vehicle turns, you're not going to be able to see anymore. So know that. Always, always, always back from the driver's side, unless it is an absolute necessity that you have to back around on the blind side. Okay, if stopped on a hill, how can you start moving without rolling back? There's a couple of ways that you can do that. One is apply the parking brake, and then bring the clutch out. And as you bring the clutch out, hold the vehicle with the clutch, and then release the parking brake and take off. The other way you can do it, hold the brake pedal, bring the clutch out to the friction point where the vehicle starts to move forward, hold the clutch, hold the vehicle with the clutch, take your foot off the brake, give it a bit of throttle, and then control the clutch and let it out the remainder of the way. That's the way that you do it, so you won't be rolling back. When backing, why is it important to use a helper? Because there's so many blind areas around large vehicles, and the bigger the vehicle you have, the more important it becomes to have a helper. So use a helper whenever possible. Number 4, what's the most important hand signal that you and the helper should agree upon? As I said, this one, stop. Because you want to bring the vehicle to a stop before you drive into the building. Okay, number 5, what are the 2 special conditions where you should shift, where you should downshift? Going downhill is one of the necessities that you need to be able to downshift. You definitely have to downshift when you're going downhill. Anytime that you need auxiliary braking, you should downshift. Number 5, what are the 2 special conditions where you should downshift? Always downshift before you go down a hill, especially if it's a longer hill, and there's going to be some different factors that determine when you're going to downshift: the length of the hill, the steepness of the hill, how heavy your CDL vehicle is, and those types of things. So that's one of the times you're going to downshift. The other time that you might downshift is before a curve, and that's what it says here in the manual. However, most of the time you're just going to slow down. And the other thing with curves that I'm going to advocate is that you want to leave it in a higher gear, actually, because if you leave it in a higher gear, there's less likely that the wheels are going to spin. If you downshift, there's the chance that you potentially could spin on the curve, especially if it's slippery or icy or there's snow on it or whatnot. So that is the other time that they say to downshift. Okay, when should you downshift automatic transmissions? You definitely want to downshift automatic transmissions before going down a steep, long hill. All right, retarders keep you from skidding when the road is slippery. That is definitely false. Retarders may lock up the rear wheels and potentially could cause the vehicle to go into a skid. What are the 2 ways to know when to shift? The 2 indicators are the tachometer and the speedometer. But a few months in the seat and you're just going to be able to hear the vehicle, feel the vehicle, and you're going to know when to shift. for the purposes of driving the vehicle and gaining speed and momentum, because remember, it's the transmission that makes the vehicle go faster, not the motor. You can put that thing in first gear and push down on the pedal all you want, it'll never go any faster. You got to shift some gears to actually make the vehicle go faster. Section 2.4, seeing. To be a safe driver, you need to know what's going on around your vehicle. Not looking properly is a major cause of collisions. I don't use the word accident because I don't believe that there are accidents. Oftentimes, studies have shown that 80 to 90% of crashes are a result of driver error, and those driver errors are failing to yield, speeding, and following too close. So if you can manage those three things, give way to other drivers and fixed objects and whatnot, if you can manage your speed effectively and you can stay away from other fixed objects and other road users, you're going to be a lot better ahead in terms of being a CDL driver. So, seeing, communication. So the four components, the four basic components of any defensive driving course, of any road test, regardless of class, are going to be speed and space management, observation, and communication. Those are the four fundamental components. So what they're talking about here is how to observe properly. And essentially what you want to do is you want to look far down the road. You want to look 12 to 15 seconds down the road, and you want to be looking as far as you can down the road. The manual does say 12 to 15 seconds, but I say look as far down the road as you can see. You want to be scanning from both sides, and you want to be trying to read traffic patterns and predicting the actions of other road users on the roadway. And when I talk about road users, there are 6, maybe 7 types of road users that you're going to be dealing with in traffic, especially for Iona there in New York City. You're going to be dealing with most of these different types of road users. You're going to be dealing with pedestrians, cyclists, people on motorcycles, cars and trucks, light trucks. You're going to be dealing with buses, trucks. You're going to be dealing with taxi cabs. A lot of taxi cabs in New York City. Those are not another. They're smaller cars, but they're a group unto themselves as far as I'm concerned in terms of taxi cabs. And you're going to be dealing with people on mobility devices, mostly seniors with scooters and those types of things. So that's the new sort of road user group. Okay, so you're going to be looking for traffic. Seeing directly in front of the commercial vehicle. This is fairly convoluted in terms of what it's saying here. To reduce driver blind spots directly in front of a large commercial vehicle, all it says is that you have a mirror hanging off the front of the vehicle that allows you to see down in front of the vehicle. And this is really most relevant to transit vehicles and buses and those types of things, so you can see down in front of the vehicle in case there's a trash can down there, or there's a small child or something like that. Essentially, that's what that's saying in terms of convex mirrors and whatnot. Okay, seeing to the sides and the rears, having proper mirror adjustment, having convex mirrors and those types of things, doing regular checks. You should be scanning your mirrors every 10 to 12 seconds and looking down far down the road, and you should have a scanning pattern. And I'll put a video up here for you. I know the video is on speed control, but it does give you the scanning pattern in that and talks about the scanning pattern. And I'll just talk to you about one transit driver. I was hired to do expert testimony with a local transit authority, or the lawyer that was suing the local transit authority, because the bus driver had gone around on a right-hand turn and struck a pedestrian. And one of the things that the driver didn't do while making the turn was be looking in their mirror. And one of the things that I teach drivers is the 70-30 rule. You should be looking 30% forward and 70% in the mirror, because you need to be looking down that side of the vehicle as you're turning, in case, for example, pedestrians get into the path of travel and you run over them, and then you're going to be into trouble. So just look in the mirror all the time while you're turning. Okay, special situations require more regular mirror checks. So if you determine that there is some sort of hazard on the roadway, potential hazard, then you want to cover the brake and you want to be scanning more vigilantly while you're going past that hazard until you're past it and carrying on. Okay, merges, lane merges. There is another video here on lane merges. I know it's not about CDL vehicles, but it is applicable to CDL vehicles, especially for Iona, who's doing transit bus driving. You want 3 flashes on the signal before you start to merge over, and you need to be scanning, and you need to be doing shoulder checks. I know in a bus it's a little bit limited, but you can look 90 degrees on both sides. In a big truck, you're not going to be able to shoulder check. You're going to rely mostly, on your convex mirrors. But the most important part about merges is that you have 3 flashes on the signal before you start to move over. And the reason I say 3 flashes on the signal is this: the first flash gets the attention of other drivers, the second flash allows the other driver to locate your vehicle, and the third flash allows the other driver to take some sort of evasive action so that they can either help you out or get out of your way. And that's the reason I advocate that. Okay, so using mirrors, regular mirrors and convex mirrors, all that's going to be happening. Communicating, signaling your intentions. You're going to signal your intentions for turns approximately half a block from the turn, and you don't want to put your signals on so it confuses other traffic. For example, if you're in an industrial area and you're a half a block from the turn, but there's a laneway right there, traffic behind you might think that you're going to turn at that laneway. So you might want to wait until you're just past the driveway or right at the driveway, and then the traffic behind you is going to know that you're not going to turn there. All right, lane changes, slowing down. Sometimes if you've got vehicles that are tailgating you, you might want to just tap the brakes behind you to let other traffic behind you know that you're coming to a stop. If you're on a freeway and the traffic comes to a stop, you want to activate your four-way flashers. That indicates to traffic behind you that you are in fact stopped. Okay, tight turns. That is going to be something that you're going to need to practice in a driving school. Stopping on the roadway. If you need to stop on the roadway for any length of time, you might need to put out your triangles to warn other traffic or some sort of pylons or whatnot, but definitely activate your four-way flashers. And the other piece about activating your four-way flashers is that if you're slowing down and you're, like, say, a truck driver and you're looking for a location where you're going to make a delivery or a pickup, then you want to put your four-way flashers on to indicate to other traffic that you're driving erratically or driving slower than the traffic flow, and that will keep you safe as well. Okay, don't direct traffic, and this is for larger vehicles that are driving on highways at slower speeds, because if the traffic passes you and gets into a crash, you could be liable, so don't do that. Okay, so communicating your presence to other vehicles when you're passing. When passing, this is just the basis of defensive driving. Always assume that other road users don't see you. And if you are pretty sure that you can't get eye contact with that person, or you notice that that person that you're driving past or other road user is not looking at you, then make sure that you cover the brake, you slow down, you give them as much space and whatnot as you can. That way until you're past the hazard and you can carry on with your trip. Okay, when it's hard to see at dusk and dawn are the most dangerous times of the day, because you have a bright sky and a dark landscape, and your eyes are adjusted to the bright sky, and that's why it's most difficult at dusk and dawn to see. Okay, and other times during poor light conditions, as road conditions deteriorate, you're going to have to slow down and increase your following distance, and that's the most important piece in terms of dealing with inclement weather, dealing with bad light situations and whatnot. Increase your following distance, that way you have more space around your vehicle and you have a bigger buffer of safety, and that's essentially what you want to do. And they'll talk a little bit more about following distance here later on in the chapter, but for the most part, you want to be approximately 3 to 5 seconds of following distance depending on the size of your vehicle, but you'll get used to that and you'll have space around your vehicle in case something goes wrong. Then you can get the vehicle stopped, or you can steer out of the emergency situation, because remember, steering out of an emergency situation is faster than braking out of an emergency situation. Sometimes you're not going to get stopped in time. All right, so when parked on the side of the road, you might have to put out triangles. Place your warning devices at following locations. Triangles, reflectors, so it's 10 feet, 100 feet, and 200 feet. If there is an obstruction, it's going to be 500 feet where you're going to put them, and there are some diagrams here on the manual, as you can see as well. So one-way or divided highway, two-way or divided highway. So on a one-way where you have multi-lanes traveling in one direction, it's 10 feet, 100 feet, and 200 feet behind the vehicle. On a two-way or divided highway, when vehicles are going to be passing you, if you can't get the vehicle off the roadway, then you put the triangles at 10 feet, 100 feet, and you put another one in front of the vehicle at 100 feet. So that's what they're talking about there. And then if it's an obstructed view, you want one of the triangles back at 500 feet to warn other traffic that your vehicle is up over the crest of the hill or around on the curve. So that's the other thing that you're going to do. So you can see all of these images here that tell you where to put your triangles out. Okay, Use your horn when needed. If you're not getting the attention of other drivers through conventional means, they just don't see you, they don't see your lights flashing, those types of things, then beep your horn, okay? So speed management, or what the CDL manual calls controlling speed, okay? Posted speed limit and stopping distances, and know that the faster you go, the greater the distance it is that it's going to take you to stop your vehicle. So stopping distance, perception time, reaction time, and braking distance. This equals total stopping distance. So when you're answering the questions on the theory test, take note of that key word, total. Because stopping distance is just from the time you put your foot on the brake pedal to the time that the vehicle comes to a stop. Total stopping distance is perception time, the time that you see a hazard and you actually begin to recognize it as a hazard. Reaction time, the time it takes you from putting your foot off the throttle onto the brake pedal, and then the time it actually takes to stop the vehicle. And you can see down here that there are different stopping distances required, total stopping distances for different speeds. All right, the effective speed on stopping, and what you need to remember is 2 weight 4 speed. So if you double the weight, it takes twice as much space to stop the vehicle. If you double the speed, it takes 4 times the amount of space to stop the vehicle. So that's how you remember that. 2 weight 4 speed, and that's the most common question that they're going to ask you on the road test, okay, or on the theory test for the purposes of your CDL license. Okay, the effective weight, the effective speed, we've gone over that. Matching speed to the road surface, and slippery conditions, and identifying slippery conditions. And this is what we were talking about earlier, that most of the time you're going to slow down or increase your following distance rather as road conditions deteriorate. So as light deteriorates, as the condition of the road surface deteriorates, if it's snowing or it's foggy or it's raining or those types of things, you're going to slow down to better manage your speed and to better manage space around your vehicle. Okay, identifying slippery surfaces, and essentially here what they're talking about is ice and snow. And I don't subscribe to the term black ice, however, it is ice, and there are places where ice forms first. And if you head over to the Smart Drive Test Mastermind group, there's a video there about a truck that crashes on a bridge for the reasons of what would be termed as black ice, but it's not black ice because we know that bridges and overpasses freeze first. So take note of the temperature outside. If it's near freezing or there's been some precipitation, then you're going to have ice on the roadways, and it's going to form on bridges and overpasses first. So know that. You're going to have ice forming in shaded areas, any place that lies in shadow underneath a building or in the crest of a hill or those types of things. Low-lying areas you're going to have at high elevations, and any place that a roadway goes past a body of water. All of these places are going to have ice on the roadway. Black ice, like I said, I don't subscribe to black ice because you can figure out where it is. As well, take note of precipitation. Take note when the temperature is around 0. For those of you in the States, it's 32 degrees Fahrenheit. And there will be temperature gauges in most of these newer vehicles that will tell you or warn you that there's ice on the roadway. Okay, vehicle icing. You can see ice on the front of the vehicle. You can see ice on the mirrors and those types of places. So if it is raining and it's around freezing, what happens is freezing rain comes from the sky as rain and then becomes ice on contact because the surface, the vehicle surface, the road surface, all of the surfaces that it touches is too cold and it becomes freezing rain. All right, hydroplaning. Hydroplaning is essentially when the tires of the vehicle lift up on the surface of the water. And oftentimes this happens because you're either traveling too fast or you have poor tires on your vehicle, because the treads on the tire actually work as a pump and pump the water out from underneath the tire. So if you have poor tires or you're traveling too fast, your vehicle could potentially hydroplane. And here yesterday in Vernon, we had some melting of the snow and we got pools of water on the highway, and there was some hydroplaning I experienced driving down the highway. So yes, just back up for a sec and put the video up on black ice for you as well, and you can have a look at that for greater detail. Okay, speed and curves. And one of the techniques for dealing with curves in large commercial vehicles is you want to slow down before the curve, and then you want to power through the curve. And when I say power through the curve, that doesn't mean that you want to accelerate. It simply means that you want power to the drive wheels of the vehicle. And this is more important if you're pulling a trailer, because you always want the towing unit in front of the trailer and pulling the trailer, because if you let that trailer push you and it gets a bit slippery, you may end up in the rhubarb. So always slight power to the wheels. Slow down before the curve and then power through the curve. Okay, speed and distance ahead, you should always be able to stop within the distance you can see ahead. Fog, rain, and other conditions may require you to slow down. Okay, and this just comes back to managing speed. Okay, speed and traffic flow. When you're driving in heavy traffic, the safest speed is the speed of other vehicles going in the same direction. And for those of you doing a road test, in large commercial vehicles, there's 3 speeds that you need to do. You need to do the posted speed limit, flow of traffic, or the capability of the vehicle. Whichever is less is the speed that you are going to travel for the purposes of your road test. Okay? And this is what they're talking about in terms of traffic flow. And a lot of times it's just safer to stay with the speed of the traffic flow. As well, the other technique that you can employ is to drive in the spaces between the vehicles. That way you've got plenty of space around your vehicle and you're not going to be near other objects and road users. Because what I say, if you're not near other things, it's less likely that you're going to hit it. Okay, speeds on downgrades and some of the factors that do affect how fast you travel downhill. Total weight of the vehicle and the cargo, the length of the grade, the steepness of the grade, the road conditions, and the weather. All of this is going to determine how fast you travel downhill. And for those of you who are going to go on and become truck drivers, if you're in the state of Idaho or Montana or in California and other places where they have these long, steep downgrades, many times they will have a truck speed limit that you can go down that hill at, whether that's 30 miles an hour or 40 kilometers an hour, whatever that may be. You need to obey those signs, and that's the speed that you go down the hill. Now, as well, if the downgrade or the grade down the hill is icy or there's a bit of snow on it or whatnot, you may have to put a chain on the trailer or on the back of the vehicle to stop the vehicle from coming around. So that's another thing that you might need to do in order to control your speed going down the hill. And you definitely want to use the Jake brake. And as well, I'll put a video up here for you on descending downhills, which will give you more explanation of grade signs and those types of things, because grade signs are actually one of the things that could potentially save your life in terms of going downhill. So I'll put that video up for you as well. Okay, road work, or rather roadway work zones. Speeding traffic is the #1 injuries to workers, construction workers on roadways, so take note of that as well. Definitely slow down, definitely pay attention to the cautionary speed, or not the cautionary, the posted speed limit within construction areas, because that is required. And know that in many states and in many provinces here in Canada, many states in the United States and many provinces here in Canada, that traffic fines double in construction zones. So just know that as well. Okay. So subsection 2.4, 2.5, and 2.6. How far ahead does the manual say you should look? It's 12 to 15 seconds. I say simply you should look as far ahead as you can and get the big picture. Both sides of the roadway of pedestrians and other road users and those types of things. #2, what are the 2 main things to look for ahead? You're looking for road conditions and you're looking for vehicles and other road users as you're looking ahead. All right? So you're looking for how the road changes, where it goes, and you're looking for vehicles and road users that are coming onto the roadway. And essentially what you're doing is, if you can do that and you can look ahead, you can predict traffic patterns and you can predict the actions of other road users on the roadway. What's your most important way to see the sides and rears of your vehicle? Mirrors and convex mirrors is the way that you see the sides and the rear of the vehicle. Okay, you're not going to see it any other way. That's the only way that you're going to be able to see it. And again, you need a scanning pattern that you're looking in your wing mirrors all the time, so that you're scanning along the sides of the vehicles and looking back. And again, turning, what I talked about, the 70-30 rule. You want to be looking 30% forward while you're turning and 70% in your mirrors. Most of your time is going to be looking in your mirrors. What does communicating mean in a safe driving? It means that you're communicating using the 5 ways that we communicate with other traffic: is lights, horn, signals. Signals are lights. Hand gestures, appropriate hand gestures, eye contact with other road users, and the position of your vehicle on the roadway. Those are the ways that we communicate with other traffic when we're driving. Where should your reflectors be placed when stopped on a divided highway? So they're talking about a divided highway. They're talking about multi-lanes going in the same direction. So it's 10 feet, 100 feet, and 200 feet behind the vehicle. What 3 things add up to total stopping distance? Perception time, reaction time, and braking distance. The distance it takes the vehicle to stop once you put your foot on the brake to the time it comes to a total stop. If you go twice as fast, will your stopping distance increase by 2 or 4 times? Twice as fast. So 2 weight, 4 speed. So it increases 4 times. Empty trucks have the best braking, true or false? That's definitely false. Trucks are designed to carry weight, and if they're empty, they're dangerous, so know that. Okay, what is hydroplaning? Hydroplaning is when you have water on the roadway and the tires lift up on the surface of the water and your vehicle becomes unstable and potentially could go in a skid. Most of the time, if you just take your foot off the throttle and the vehicle slows down a little bit, it'll regain contact with the road surface. However, know that if you have bad tires on your vehicle that do not have good tread, you're more likely to hydroplane. Okay, what is black ice? Black ice, in my mind, is just it doesn't exist. There are places that you can find black ice, but for the purposes of this, it's going to just say that it's ice that you can't see on the road surface. It looks black. It looks like the surface. But if you pay attention to the weather, note that there has been precipitation or there's been melting in the last 24 hours. The temperature went down around 0 the night before. You know that there's going to be ice on the roadway. And where you most likely can find that ice, areas that lie in shadow of buildings or hills, low-lying areas at high elevations, bridges and overpasses freeze first, and any roadway that runs near a body of water. That's where you're most likely to find ice. Section 2.7, managing space. And as I said, speed management, space management, communication, and observation. Those are the 4 fundamentals of safe and defensive driving, and as well, they're the 4 fundamental components of passing a road test and being successful on a road test. So managing space ahead. One of the places that you can always manage space around your vehicle is in front of your vehicle. That's the one place you can always manage speed. You simply slow down, the other traffic will take off, and you'll have a space. Now, I have had the argument with students in the past that if you back off, other vehicles are going to take that space. Well, if they take that space, just back off. And eventually, if they're going to take that space anyway, they're already driving faster than you, so they're just going to be gone pretty quickly anyway. So you probably won't even have to slow down if other vehicles move into that space. Now, how much space do you need? I say 5 seconds for any commercial vehicle, but here in the New York State CDL manual, they say 1 second for every 10 feet of vehicle, and then anything over 40 miles an hour, they want another second. So if you're driving a 30-foot vehicle and you're doing 55 miles an hour, you want 4 seconds of following distance. And I'll put a video up for you how to determine that. You simply watch the vehicle in front of you. When that vehicle in front of you passes a fixed object, you start counting. 1 alligator, 2 alligator, 3 alligator. When you pass that fixed object, that's how far you're passing that other vehicle. Dealing with tailgaters, you simply need to increase your following distance in front, because now you're driving your vehicle for both yourself and for the vehicle behind you. So that's the way that you deal with tailgaters. And as well, just keep your eye in the mirror and make sure what they're doing back there. Okay, space to the sides of the vehicle, staying centered in the lane. If you look farther down the road, you're going to center your vehicle in your lane. Okay, strong winds make it difficult to stay in your lane, but you're going to have to sort of figure that out, and that's just an experiential thing of dealing with winds. Space overhead. This is a bit interesting in the state of New York because they measure from the center of the hub, not from the ground. In most places in the United States, the height of your vehicle allowed is 13 feet 6 inches. In New York State and in New York City, there are bridges and overpasses that are labeled 12.6 that you can actually go under. And so New York State has a few different driving rules than most people, and that's one of them. So space below, you don't want your vehicle to high center. So if you've got low clearance on your vehicle, or you've got a tractor trailer unit that you're driving you're pulling a lowboy trailer or something along with really low clearance, and you go up over a railway crossing, for example, your vehicle is going to high center and it's going to bog out on that, and that's what that's talking about in terms of space below. Okay, space for turns here, and they're talking about right turns, and they demonstrate here in the picture that a jug handle is incorrect and a button hook is actually correct. And one of the things that I always tell students, if you make a jug handle, you may end up sideswiping the vehicle beside you, and you're committing an unpredictable action. If you do a button hook, you're keeping the hazards and obstructions in front of your vehicle. So always take the space from the road onto which you're turning, not the road on which you are when you're making right-hand turns. All right. And the other thing is that always keep the back end in near the vehicle. Only move the front of the vehicle out. And again, the other thing about turning a large commercial vehicle, move left to go right and move right to go left. Sometimes you'll have to go out of your lane, but most of the time you will not have to. So if you're making a right-hand turn, you're going to have to move the vehicle as far left as you can, and most of the time you don't have to go out of your lane. Now, if you're turning left, you want to move to the right side of your lane to maximize space on the roadway. All right. Okay, and on left turns, make sure you make sure that you're in the intersection, the center of the intersection, before you start making your turn. You want to box your turns more, and you can see that here in figure 2.14. that it is really boxed here. It's very accentuated, and you need to do that for the purposes of turning a large commercial vehicle, because remember, we're talking about off tracking, and off tracking is where the rear wheels take a shorter path through the curve than the front wheels. And just anytime you've got a vehicle in snow or those types of things, just watch when it turns. The front wheels and the rear wheels will take a different path from one another, and that's what off tracking is. Okay, space needed to cross or enter traffic. Know that when you're merging into other traffic, you're going to need some space to be able to get in there. You probably want 2 or 3 vehicle lengths before you merge into a space. And the other thing about it is that you need to communicate with other road users that you're going to merge. So you need to put your signal on early, and that is the key to successful merging into other traffic, is communicating with them your intentions. Okay, seeing hazards. What is a hazard? A hazard is any road condition or other road user that is a possible danger that could potentially cause a crash. So you need to get experience with what potentially could be another hazard or another danger. And one of the examples that I'll give you with a CDL driver that I was training that didn't know or hadn't paid attention to what wide loads were up until that point in his or her driving career. There was a wide load sitting in the outside lane, staying away from the curb, and the driver in the tractor trailer simply moved up on the inside lane right beside the wide load. And the mirrors on the 2 trucks were about 6 inches apart, which really caused me to kind of get a little bit anxious about that. So there's a different set of hazards that you need to understand when driving a commercial vehicle, and unfortunately a lot of that's only going to come from experience. You can't have it told to you in writing down a book. Okay, move over laws. Many jurisdictions have now implemented move over laws for drivers, not just of commercial vehicles, but also passenger vehicles as well. That if there's work crews on the side of the road or emergency vehicles, those types of things, you need to try and move over. You need to slow down to 40 miles an hour or 60 kilometers an hour for those of us here in Canada. Okay, work zones, definitely pay attention to all the signs in work zones and definitely slow down. Pavement drop-off, this does happen at times. And this is more of a danger for new drivers who are inexperienced with the front tires sort of dropping off the edge of the pavement. Just hold the steering wheel and just kind of jiggle it back onto the roadway. Don't get a big turn of the steering wheel to bring your vehicle back onto the roadway. Okay, foreign objects. You're scanning down the road, you're looking far down the road, you're looking for anything that could be on the roadway. And most of the time you don't want to try and run over it if you can avoid it, because you don't know what's in it. If there's a garbage bag on the roadway, for example, you don't know what's in that garbage bag. It might be something that's very hard that'll go up under the belly of your vehicle and cause a lot of damage. So if you can try and avoid it, by all means do that. All right, if you do have to hit it, it's probably better if you go over it with the tires. Or if you get some idea from a distance how high it is, you might be able to clear it without it doing any damage. But it's kind of one of those things that you got to make a decision right away. It's a tough decision to make. Okay, on ramps and off ramps, you need to slow down before you get there, because this is one of the reasons that commercial drivers flop over big trucks like, kind of dead pigs, is that they go around there. They've been on the freeway for a long time. They don't realize that they're going too fast. They don't get the vehicle slowed down, and then they go around the curve and they're going far too fast, and the vehicle flops over. So know that as well. Hazards and off ramps and on ramps are going to be somewhat dangerous. Okay, drivers who are hazard, those that have blocked vision. Delivery trucks can present a hazard. This is going to be interesting for Ayana driving there in New York City with vehicles being double parked and those types of things. Pedestrians and cyclists and distractions, children. Yes, children are going to be that. People who are talking, workers, ice cream trucks. So you've got a whole list of possible distractions and possible hazards on the roadway. And here are some of the warning signs: weaving, leaving the road, stopping at the wrong time, open the window in the cold weather, speeding up or slowing down. Driver's body movement or other road users' body movement is going to be clues about what their plan of action is. Okay, always have an escape route. And again, it's about managing space, it's about proper observation, and it's about communicating your intentions. All of this is going to keep you out of trouble while you're driving your commercial vehicle. Okay, so here we go. How do you find out how many seconds of following distance space you have? Okay, The vehicle in front passes a fixed object. You start counting when you pass the fixed object. That's when you know how far your following distance. If you're driving a 30-foot vehicle at 55 miles an hour, how many seconds should your following distance be? So it's 1 second for each foot. So it's 1 second for each 10 feet of vehicle. So it's 3 seconds plus another second for over 40 miles an hour. So it's 4 seconds as your following distance. You should decrease your following distance if somebody is following you too closely, true or false. You should increase your following distance, so that's definitely false. If you swing wide to the left before turning right, another driver may try to pass you on the right. That is true. If you move out to the left and you bring the back of the vehicle out too, somebody may try and get up on the inside of you, especially a cyclist. Okay, what is a hazard? A hazard is anything that potentially could cause you to have a crash. And why make emergency plans when you see a hazard? Because you always want an out. You always want to have an option of what you're going to do. It's like the transit driver that struck the pedestrian making a right-hand turn. What I say is that he should have been looking in the mirrors. He should have been going slowly. Had the driver been doing that, he may have avoided the crash with the pedestrian. All right. Distracted driving. What is distracted driving? Most of the time, distracted driving is to do with cell phones and those types of things. That's what we think of as distracted driving. But distracted driving could be anything. It could be eating. It could be drinking. It could be putting on makeup. It could be talking to a passenger. It could be just about anything that could cause you to be distracted. So there's lots of techniques here that they talk about in terms of not being distracted. So review and be totally familiar with safety and usage features on the vehicle and electronics, including your wireless or cell phone before you drive. Pre-program radio stations, preload your favorite CDs, and clear the vehicle of any unnecessary objects, okay? So have all of this stuff ready. Have all of this stuff in place before you start driving, okay? And communication equipment cautiously. If you can, talk on the radio when you're pulled over at a stop or those types of things. That's going to be a lot safer than actually trying to talk on the electronic device while you're driving. And as well, if you're doing left-hand turns or other complex maneuvers, as it says here, stop talking, stop doing that, and just focus on what you're doing, okay? Watch out for other distracted drivings, and it's pretty easy to find out when somebody else is talking on their cell phone or they're not paying attention to their driving and those types of things. They're driving erratically, their speed is going up and down, the vehicle is doing weird things, you can see the driver's hand up and those types of things. And so you can notice when other people are distracted driving, okay? Aggressive drivers and road rage, what is the difference? Aggressive drivers are simply those that it says right here that they're driving selfishly, boldly, and in a pushy manner. They're just aggressive. So just let them carry on with their life and have their crash somewhere else. Don't be an aggressive driver. Try to get plenty of sleep. Try to eat well. Try to get decent exercise. And that way you're not going to be an aggressive driver. And what should you do when you're confronted by an aggressive driver? Avoid eye contact. Don't make hand gestures. Don't egg them on. Don't say stuff that's going to increase this, and if it gets out of hand, then call the police and report them. Okay. What are some tips to follow so you won't become a distracted driver? Have your stuff ready. Use electronic devices and radios and those types of things cautiously. Know where you're going. Navigation is going to be one of the big things in terms of keeping yourself focused on the task at hand. How do you use in-vehicle communication equipment cautiously? If you can pull over, you can do it at a bus stop or you can do it at a rest area, those types of things. That's the best place to do it. If the traffic situation becomes complex, so there's a lot going on, then stop using it and just say, hang on, I'll be back in a minute, okay? Especially on left-hand turns. If you're doing left-hand turns, just be quiet and focus on the left-hand turn because they're dangerous. How do you recognize a distracted driver? Speed's variable, and they're speeding up, they're slowing down, they're weaving in their lane, they're not paying attention to what they're doing, those types of things. So those are some of the ways that you can do that with distracted drivers as well. And sometimes you can see the driver in the vehicle through the glass, and you'll be able to tell that he or she is talking on their cell phone, putting on their makeup, drinking a cup of coffee, or talking to their passengers, not paying attention to what they're doing. What is the difference between aggressive driving and road rage? So aggressive driving is people who are driving in a selfish and a bold manner, and essentially if they're driving in an aggressive manner, and you can just slow down and let them go off and have their crash somewhere else. That's the best way to deal with it. Road rage is people who are completely angry and are not able to control their emotions at all. And you don't want to make eye contact. You don't want to have hand gestures. You don't want to open the doors, lock the doors. Most people who are that angry can only do it for a couple of minutes. So know that. And if it gets out of hand and they confront you, they get out of their vehicle, don't make eye contact. Simply call the police or drive off and drive to a police station and actually contact the police and report them. Okay, so you don't want to be confronted with road rage. Okay, what should you do? Okay, so I answered the next question in terms of aggressive drivers. And what are some things that you can do to reduce your stress before and while you drive? Get plenty of sleep, eat well, exercise, and do some unplugging. You know, whatever you do to reduce stress and those types of things. Get all of that in place. 2.11, driving at night. Yes, it is more dangerous, and the reason it is more dangerous is because most of the information we need for driving is gathered through our eyes, and at night, our ability to see is reduced by almost half, so it is difficult to see at night. And so that's one of the reasons we can't see at night. Glare is one of the other reasons. Other vehicles with their lights coming towards you. Fatigue and lack of alertness. We all have a biological clock, and our natural biological tendency is to go to sleep in the early afternoon between 1 and 5, and as well in the early morning between 1 and 5 as well. So know those are the dangerous times to be driving on the roadways. So poor lighting, it's going to be difficult to see other drivers on the roadway, and we already talked about dusk and dawn. And as well, when you're driving in the middle of the night, especially Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're going to be more likely to encounter drunk drivers. Okay, most of the time you want to be driving with your high beams on, but if you're becoming fatigued or those types of things, which is a reality of CDL drivers, and I'll put a video up here for you on fatigue management, you want to be driving with your low beams on, because oftentimes you're going to forget to turn down your high beams, and you don't want to be blinding other vehicles. Okay, so other lights, making sure all the lights on the vehicle are working, your reflectors, your marker lights, your clearance lights, your tail lights, identification lights, which is essentially your license plate lights and those types of things. So windshields and mirrors. The other thing you want to do at night is make sure all the glass is clean, especially on the front of the vehicle, because all of that's going to reflect glare and make it more difficult to see other objects and road users on the roadway. So pre-trip inspections, and this is one of the safety equipment that you need in your vehicles. You need to have a flashlight. Avoid blinding others. You know, dim your lights 500 feet from other vehicles, oncoming vehicles, and those types of things. Avoid glare from oncoming vehicles. When the other vehicle is coming towards you and they don't dim their lights, as sometimes happens, simply look down at the fog line on the road there, and that will preserve your night vision. And again, I'll put a video up here for you on night driving that's available on the channel that'll give you some more information about driving at night. Now, a lot of the techniques and skills that you put in place for driving at night are also applicable to driving in fog and other inclement weather when it's difficult to see. Now, fog, you want to have your low beams on. You definitely want to have your lights on. Now, I don't. Some people and some manuals do advocate turning on your four-way flashers. I do not advocate turning on your four-way flashers in bad weather. All the other drivers, and myself included, we all know that the weather is bad outside. You don't need to tell us. If you're stopped along the highway or the freeway, or you're stopped behind other traffic, then yes, by all means, definitely turn on your four-way flashers to indicate to other traffic what's happening. But if you're just driving along and you're driving slow, all the other traffic's driving slow too. We know it's bad weather, so don't turn your four-ways on. That's just distracting, especially if somebody's following you. Okay, driving in the winter, vehicle checks, and I'll put a vehicle up here for you for preparing a passenger vehicle, and some of that is applicable to CDL vehicles as well. And some of the things you want to check is your coolant level, antifreeze, defrost, and heater equipment, windshield wipers, and those types of things. You want to check your tire pressure, and again, there's the depths for the rear tires and the front tires. Some CDL vehicles will require tire chains. I know here in the province of British Columbia, probably in Washington State, California, and in Idaho, they have to have tire chains on between October and the end of April. Those are required to be on the vehicle when you're driving through mountainous terrain, so know that, and you may have to know how to put tire chains on your vehicle. One of the things I'll say, if you haven't done it before, don't wait until you have to put them on, because oftentimes when you have to put them on, it's miserable out. There's 2 feet of snow on the ground, and the snow and water is dripping off the vehicle and you've got to get under there and put them on. Fit your chains on the vehicle before you actually get to where you need them. Dry fit them. That way you know they fit, you know they're the right chains, and you know how to put them on. So don't wait until you have to. Try it before. Take a practice run at it. Okay, lights and reflectors, mirrors and glass, handholds and steps, and they're talking about all the things that you need to check for the purposes of getting your vehicle ready for winter driving. Slippery surfaces, slow down, check for ice. Okay, before you actually come to a stop, test to make sure that the surface is going to get you stopped. And in a commercial vehicle, you want to stop back and slow down back from the intersection or where you actually want to stop, and then you want to creep up. Okay, so adjust turning and braking, adjust speed conditions, adjust space. So as road conditions deteriorate, you want to increase your following distance. You want to manage your space more effectively. And as well, on slippery conditions, you can't steer and brake at the same time. It has to be independent actions. You brake first and then steer. Okay, so if you're coming up to a corner and you want to turn, you got to slow down the vehicle before you actually turn. All right, wet brakes doesn't happen very often in this day and age, but eventually, once in a while, it could happen. Essentially, you just want to put a slight drag on the pedal, and that'll dry out the brake pad, but also you want to check to make sure that you haven't lost your brakes if you're driving through deep water and those types of things. Okay, driving in very hot conditions, vehicle checks, make sure your tires are properly inflated, make sure that they're not overheating. You just put your hand near the hub and know that it's not overheating. Watch the engine oil. A lot of these commercial vehicles will have a temperature gauge on the engine oil. Watch that. Watch your engine coolant, what the temperature of that is, and those types of things. Okay, never let air out of the tires is one of the questions that they ask you. Wait until the engine is cooled. If it overheats and those types of things, never take a radiator cap off a radiator when the engine has been running. You could really cause severe burn, so don't do that. Okay, engine belts, make sure you check them. The way you check them is as if there's two pulleys. Midway between the two pulleys, you should be able to push on the belt. The belt shouldn't go down more than its own width, so that's the way you check belts. Okay, driving in extremely hot weather, watch for bleeding tar. Go slowly enough to prevent overheating of the engine and those types of things. And a lot of these large trucks are going to have pyrometers on them, and pyrometers essentially tell you the temperature of the exhaust gases. So that's something else that you need to monitor for the purposes of driving in really hot weather, especially if you're driving in mountainous conditions with a heavy vehicle and you're doing some really hard pulling. You're going to have to keep a close eye on temperatures and those types of things so you don't overheat the vehicle. Okay, you should use low beams whenever possible. That's false. You want to try and use high beams as much as possible because that way you can have a better view of the roadway and those types of things. What should you do before you drive? If you were drowsy, you should get some sleep. That's the only way that you can do it. You can go into sleep debt. Unfortunately, you can't bank sleep, but you can go into sleep debt, and the only way to do that is to get some sleep. What effect can wet brakes cause, and how can you avoid these problems? If you drive through deep water, you could make the brakes wet, and they could be really spongy, and they won't work properly. One of the ways you can do that is if you drive through deep water, just put a slight drag on the brakes, and that'll keep them dried out. You should let air out of hot tires so the pressure goes back to normal. That's definitely false. You can safely remove the radiator cap so long as the engine isn't overheated. That is definitely false. Okay, railway crossings, types of crossings, active crossing, warning signs and devices. So it tells you different things for warning signs and devices, pavement markings to warn you of railway crossings. And again, I'll put a video up here for you on railway crossings and the information you need to know about railway crossings. All right, red lights and flashings. And one of the reasons that trains are dangerous is because trains do not keep schedules. You don't know when the train is going to come. Okay, never race a train to a crossing. No, just don't do that. You're just asking for a crash, especially in a CDL vehicle. Okay, reduce your speed. Don't expect to hear the train. Don't rely on signals. Double tracks require a double check, and it can take you up to 15 seconds to cross a double track in a commercial vehicle. So know that as well. Crossing the tracks, 14 seconds. It says 15 seconds to clear a double track. So know that. And as well, if you're driving a vehicle with a manual transmission and it, do not shift going over railway crossings. That's a definite fail on a CDL license. Okay, so know that as well. And as well, your vehicle could potentially high center if you have a vehicle with low clearance, if you're going over the railway crossing and those types of things. So know that as well. Okay, mountain driving. And again, have a look at the video, and I'll just put it up here again for you on descending down steep grades and the different factors that affect how you go down that steep grade. So you want an appropriate gear where the engine brake will hold the vehicle back. And engine brake technology is incredibly reliable in this day and age. You should be able to put it in the proper gear and go down the hill without touching the brakes. However, they do talk about here in terms of downhill braking that if you do need to use the service brakes, you apply the brake pedal, wait till the speedometer comes down 5 miles per hour, and then let it run back up. But you need to be in the proper gear before you go down over the top of the hill. Now, brake fading or failure. Brake fade is essentially you apply the brakes too much. What happens is that the brake drum heats up and it expands away from the brake shoes. And what happens is you get brake fade because eventually the brake pads won't come in contact with the drums anymore. And again, I'll put a video up for you on brake fade and what that is, and that'll give you more detail. Okay, proper braking techniques. I already talked about this a little bit in terms of going down the hill using the service brakes. You're in the correct gear. Bring it down 5 miles per hour, let it run back up, and then apply the brakes again. And the reason that you apply the brakes intermittently in short, hard, intermittent brake applications is so that they're released and there's enough air going over the drums that it's going to cool them. So that's why you're doing it in that braking style. Okay, what factors determine your selection of a safe speed? Yeah, this is like asking how long is a piece of string. What is a safe speed on a long downhill descent? The speed that allows you to make a stop in the event of an emergency. That's how fast you travel down the hill. Why should you be in the proper gear before starting down a hill? Because if you're not in the proper gear, you may overuse the service brakes and experience brake fade. So make sure you're in the proper gear. Describe the proper braking technique when going down a long, steep downgrade. Use the service brakes, hard, short, intermittent brake applications. Bring it down 5 miles per hour and then let it run back up. It's called snubbing, but you don't need to know the term. You just need to know how to do it. What type of vehicle can get stuck on a railway crossing? Low clearance vehicles or vehicles with landing gear hanging down and those types of things. And how long does it take for a typical tractor trailer unit to clear a double track? It can take up to 15 seconds. Driving emergency. Traffic emergencies occur when two vehicles are about to collide. Steering to avoid a crash. As I said, there's two ways out of an emergency situation. One is braking, one is steering. Steering is much faster. Keep both hands on the steering wheel. And how to turn quickly and safely. And essentially, most of the time for skid control, you only need a quarter of a turn on the steering wheel. So you can keep both hands on the steering wheel and move it like this, and that is really going to help you out. Okay, where to steer? And this comes back to space management. You need to manage space around your vehicle, and you need some place in which to steer. And leaving the road, if you're leaving the road to avoid a collision with another vehicle, especially in a head-on collision type situation, aim for something small. Aim for the hedge. Aim for the fence. Don't aim for a big boulder or a big tree because they will not move. Okay? Avoid braking. Sometimes touching the brakes is going to cause the vehicle to go out of control more than it already is out of control, especially if you're on ice and snow and those types of things. And here it says keep one set of wheels on the pavement if possible. If you hit the shoulder of the road, that way you're going to get some traction. You're going to come back on the roadway. If you're on ice and you lose traction and the vehicle goes out of skid, you might want to go to the shoulder of the road because there on the gravel, you might find some traction. There's some place you're going to find some traction, and you might get off the paved surface and you'll find some traction somewhere. So know that as well. Okay, returning to the roadway. Do not yank the vehicle back onto the roadway. Just gentle, deft touch on the steering wheel, and that'll help you to bring the vehicle back onto the roadway. Okay, how to stop the vehicle quickly and safely. It's going to talk a little bit more about ABS down here farther, but essentially what ABS does is what's called controlled braking or stab braking, which is essentially apply the brakes to the point of lockup. Just before they lock up, release them, reassess the situation, then apply the brakes again. Okay, don't jam the brakes on, especially for Iona and a transit bus. Everybody and all the luggage and bits in the vehicle will actually come forward on the windshield. Okay. Brake failure. Brake failure is highly unlikely. Most braking systems, actually all braking systems since in the last 40 years, 50 years, are all dual brake systems. So if you look, take the cap off the master cylinder in the vehicle, you'll notice that there's two chambers in there. One is for the front of the vehicle and one is for the rear of the vehicle. And it's the same thing for air brake equipped vehicles. They're divided into a primary and secondary system. So brake failure is almost a thing of the past. They rarely fail. And if they do fail in an air brake equipped vehicle, once the air exhausts out of the system, the spring brakes are going to apply the emergency brakes, which are powered by spring brakes. And on a hydraulic system, you're going to have a handbrake, and you just pull the handbrake up and the vehicle will come to a stop. So that's why it's called a parking brake or an emergency brake. And as I'll put a video up here for you on understanding air brakes and understanding dual systems and why they won't fail. Okay, so we can watch that as well. Okay, tire failure. There is a possibility that tires could fail, and definitely as part of your pre-trip inspection, you need to inspect your tires. And again, get your foot off the throttle, get your foot off the brake, just steer the vehicle, control the steering wheel, get the vehicle off to a safe place, especially if you've got a bus and passengers and those types of things. You may want to drive on the flat tire to get someplace safe, because know that if you're on the side of the road, you can't let those passengers off the bus, because it's definitely not safe. And the other thing for Iona and other people who are getting their bus license, know that passenger safety is your number one concern. So you have to look after the passengers, you have to keep them safe. Okay, 218. Anti-lock braking systems. And anti-lock braking systems are essentially to allow you to brake and steer the vehicle at the same time. And when you apply anti-lock brakes, you simply push down on the brake pedal, hold it hard, push back shutter, grinding noise, all of that's normal in terms of ABS brakes. The way that you'll know that the vehicle has ABS brakes is you turn the key to the on position. When you turn it to the on position, the ABS light will come on momentarily and then go off. And again, there's a video, I'll put a video up here for you on ABS brakes, and that'll give you a bit more information on ABS brakes. What they're talking about here in 2.18.3, they're talking about tractor trailer units, and the staggering of when ABS brakes had to come on trucks and trailers was different. So you may get a truck that has ABS brakes and a trailer that doesn't. So if you come up to an emergency situation and you're braking hard, you need to be looking in the mirrors, because that trailer may be coming around. Okay, so just know that as well for the purposes of braking with a mixed unit, that one half of the unit doesn't have ABS brakes on it and the other does. All right, so that's basically what all of that stuff says. So skid recovery and skid control, basically over braking, oversteering, over acceleration, all of these can cause you to go into a skid. And I'll put a video up here for you on skid control and oversteering. And note that in a tractor trailer unit, if you're going down a hill and you lock those rear tires of the truck up, that is more dangerous, and essentially the back of the truck's going to kick out, and that trailer is going to push that back end around, and you could potentially jackknife. That's what it's called when the two fold up. Okay? So correcting drive wheel braking skid, essentially what you need to do is they call it counter steering, but essentially you want to look in the direction you want to go, but you need to get the wheels unlocked, either stop them from spinning or stop them from skidding. And you need to get them turning again, because by the time you get the wheels turning again, then the vehicle is usually going to straighten out. And if you don't react quickly in terms of when it happens, you may lose control very quickly. Okay, so know that. Okay, front wheel skids is essentially oversteering and understeering. So essentially what happens is most of the time in a commercial unit, it's going to be understeering. You're going to have the wheels turned and the vehicle is going to continue to go straight. And I'll show you some examples of understeering. I'll put a video up here on learning to drive in the wintertime, and then I'll give you a bit more information about understeering. All right, stopping is not always the safest thing to do in an emergency. That is definitely true. Most of the time it's safer to steer out of an emergency situation. But the thing about steering out of an emergency situation is that you need some place to go. Okay, so you need to manage space around your vehicle. What are some advantages of going right instead of left around an obstacle? The advantages of going right is that you're going to go to the outside edge. Always, if you're driving on the right side of the road, go right if you can at all, because that's going to put you on the outside of the roadway and you're not going to be driving into oncoming traffic. Okay, what is an escape ramp? An escape ramp is essentially an emergency lane for runaway vehicles on a downhill that allows you to bring a runaway vehicle to a stop. Okay, if a tire blows out, you should put the brakes on hard to stop quickly. That's false. Keep your foot off the throttle, keep your foot off the brake, steer the vehicle, and allow it to slow down on its own. That'll allow you to keep control. How do you know if your vehicle has anti-lock brakes? There's two ways you know that your vehicle has anti-lock brakes. One is that when you turn the key to the on position, the ABS light will come on, and then it'll go out momentarily after a moment. Okay. The other way to know on an air brake equipped vehicle is that the air line going out to the brake chamber, there will be an electrical line zippy tied to it. What is the proper braking technique when driving a vehicle with anti-lock brakes? Push down hard, hold the brake pedal down, steer in the direction you want to go, and if you're driving a tractor trailer unit, look in the mirrors and make sure that the trailer isn't coming around. And how do anti-lock brakes help you? They help you because they allow you to brake and steer at the same time. Crash procedures, section 2.20. So, protect the area, notify authorities, and care for the injured if you are involved in a crash. As well, there's certain information if you're in a fender bender, which is just a minor crash. You're going to have to exchange some information. So one of the first things you want to do is if it is a crash that involves fatalities, you want to protect the area. You want to make sure that you don't get run into by other traffic or other vehicles on the roadway. So you want to put on your four-way flashers, you want to get your triangles out, and you want to make sure that there isn't more of a crash. And this is the same thing as when you see pile-ups on the freeway. One of the reasons that people pile up on the freeway is because they don't put their four-ways on, they don't stay back from the stopped traffic and then watch as the traffic's coming up behind them. They just move right up and then they don't have any space in front of them to manage. So that's the other thing you want to do. If you're involved in the crash and you can attend the other people there, don't worry about phoning the authorities. By the time you get on the phone to phone 911, there's already going to be 5 or 6 people that have done that already. So work on protecting the area. That's more important than contacting authorities because other people with their cell phones are already going to be doing that. Okay, care for the injured. Do triage. Figure out who needs to be helped first. And ABCs. Airways. Making sure people are breathing. Make sure that their airways aren't obstructed and those types of things. And then circulation. So bleeding and those types of things. That's the last thing. So take a standard first aid course. And for Iona and other people who are doing buses and transit authority type work, you're going to have to take a first aid course anyway. Okay, so fires. Trucks can have fires depending on the cargo that they're carrying and those types of things. So causes of crashes, tire fires, electrical fires, fuel. The cargo can be flammable if you're carrying dangerous goods. It's all transportation of dangerous goods, TDG. And after the crashes, spilled fuel and improper use of flares and those types of things. And of course, most commercial vehicles in this day and age do not have flares. They're not equipped with flares because they found out that flares and flammable materials and liquids do not go together. Okay, so ways to prevent fires: pre-trip inspection, en route inspections, making sure that your hubs or your tires don't get overheated and those types of things, following safe procedures, and monitoring and caution, and using caution when handling anything flammable, diesel fuel and gasoline and other flammable substances and whatnot. Okay, if there is a fire, pull off the roadway. Don't pull into a service station. It's actually somewhat humorous that they said that, but some people may. I mean, oh my God, there's a parking lot and they're kind of freaked out about the fire. And they just pull into a service station without really thinking because they're more concerned about the fire. So just keep that in mind. Okay, keep the fire from spreading. Don't open doors. Don't open cargo bay doors. And don't open the hood of the vehicle and those types of things. Okay, using fire extinguishers. When using a fire extinguisher, stay as far away from the fire as possible. Aim at the source or the base of the fire, not up into the flames. You want to aim down. Okay, position yourself upwind and let the wind carry the extinguisher to the fire. And then continue to whenever was burning has been closed. Okay, absence of smoke or flames does not mean the fire cannot start again. Okay, so don't open the hood. Just wait for emergency crews to arrive and let them deal with it. All right, so there's different kinds of fire extinguishers. There's A, B, C, and D. Okay, class A is wood, paper, ordinary combustibles. B is anything that's flammable: grease, oil, gasoline, diesel fuel, those types of things. C is electrical equipment, electrical fires, and D is combustible metals. Okay, there are different kinds of metals that need special fires, and most CDL vehicles are not going to be equipped with this. Okay, so just know that for the purposes of fighting a fire. But if you're hauling specific TDG, transportation of dangerous goods, if you have specific dangerous goods on your vehicle, you may have to fit, and your company will know about this, they'll fit specific fire extinguishers to the load that you're carrying or transporting. Okay, what are some things to do at a crash scene to prevent another crash? Make sure that your vehicle, the area is protected, that other traffic doesn't run into you. That's one of the things you want to do. Then you want to notify authorities, and then the last thing is you want to attend to people and try and administer first aid. And for those of you being commercial drivers, you do want to take a first aid course. It's really a good thing to have under your belt. Name 2 causes of tire fires: underinflated tires and duals that touch. Those potentially could cause tire fires. Okay, what kinds of fires is a BC extinguisher not good for? It's not good for metal fires, fires that are caused because of metal and those types of things. When using your extinguisher, you should get as close to as possible to the fire. That's false. Stay as far away as you can with still being effective to get the fire extinguisher into the fire to help put it out. Name some causes of vehicle fires: spilled fuel, cargo, tire fires, electrical fires. Those are some of the different reasons why you could potentially have a fire. And I think we're into the last section here, 2.22, which is alcohol, other drugs, and driving. Okay, if you're a CDL driver, just don't drink and drive within 24 hours of going to work. It's just that simple. I know that some people do, and it's unfortunate. And also is drinking and driving blood alcohol, that you can incur serious fines if you are caught drinking and driving as a CDL driver. And as well, talks about what determines blood alcohol content, what kinds of behaviors: straddling lanes, quick jerky starts, not signaling. All of this is significant and is characteristic of people who are driving drunk. And for CDL drivers, just know that on the weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, after midnight, you're probably more likely to be encountering people who are driving drunk. So just know that. How alcohol affects driving: increased reaction times, driving too slow or too fast, driving in the wrong lane, running over the curb, weaving, those types of things. And there are some myths here about alcohol. The only thing that allows you to sober up from alcohol is time itself. You can't eat or drink, those types of things. Most people can handle about 1 drink an hour and not be inebriated, but that varies from person to person, so don't take that as a general rule. Okay, and the other thing you need to know about drinking and driving is that if you go out for a bender the night before and we're drinking till 3 in the morning, and then you stay there until 7 or sleep until 7 or 8 in the morning, and you get up and drive, you are legally still drunk. Okay, it takes about an hour for every drink that you had for that to sort of get out of your system. So know that as well, that it takes time to get it out of your system before you're sober again. Okay, there are all kinds of illegal drugs that you can take: marijuana, coke, amphetamines, those types of things that will affect your driving ability. The most abused drug when it comes to driving and medication is prescribed medication. Most people who are driving commercial vehicles are not fit to drive because of prescribed and over-the-counter medication. So know that. Now, it gives you some ideas and some tips here about how to be ready to drive: get enough sleep, schedule trips safely, exercise regularly, eat healthy, avoid medication, and visit your doctor regularly and have your checkups and those types of things. And while you are driving, wear comfortable clothing. Take breaks every couple of hours. Keep cool. Don't be overheated or too cold when you're driving. Recognize the dangerous signals of drowsy driving. Your eyes close or go out of focus by themselves. You have trouble keeping your head up. You keep yawning. There are many different characteristics that indicate that we are falling asleep. When I used to drive, I knew that if I started chewing my fingernails, I had 5 or 10 minutes to get off the road, because I knew that I was going to fall asleep almost instantly. So look for the signs, know the signs, and know your body. Okay, stop to sleep if you need to. Take a nap. Avoid drugs. And do not rely on coffee or other sources of caffeine to keep you awake. The only thing that can cure being tired is sleep itself. Okay, illness: if you're ill, just stay home, get some rest, and get yourself well before you go back to work. Okay, TDG, we talked about transportation of dangerous goods, hazardous material rules for all commercial drivers. Hazardous materials are anything that is a risk to health, safety, and property during the transportation of these dangerous goods. And they're broken down into 9 categories here, as you can see: explosives, gases, flammable materials, flammable solids. And any driver that transports dangerous goods has to have a TDG card. You have to take a TDG course. You have to know what's going on your vehicle. And essentially the 2 most important pieces of information that you need for the transportation of dangerous goods: all transportation of dangerous goods, the cargo will be, so if you're driving a tractor-trailer unit, there will be placards on 4 sides of the trailer that's transporting the materials, or a railway car, or whatever it is. Those placards have to be on there to identify to first responders what is in the container and what could potentially be dangerous to them. And for the driver of the vehicle, the paperwork, if you are exiting the vehicle and leaving the vehicle unattended for a period of time, the paperwork, the TDG paperwork, has to be left either on the driver's seat, or it has to be in the door pocket of the vehicle. That's where it has to be. So if first responders show up and it's burning or something's leaking or whatnot, they know where to find the paperwork. So communicate the risk. So there is paperwork that goes with your TDG load that you are transporting. And I can almost guarantee you that if you're driving a truck with TDG, you are going to get pulled into the scale almost every time you go across the scale. They want to know what's in that truck. They're going to make sure that you are abiding by the rules and regulations. Okay, so placards, they all have identification numbers. 1 is explosives, 2 is hazard inhalation, combustible is 3, and then so on and so forth. And you can basically look that up in your TDG book. So the rules require all drivers of placarded vehicles to learn how to safely load and transport hazardous materials. Now, loading the vehicle is usually the responsibility of the shipper, and they will load the freight on the vehicle. They will give you the placards and you put them on the vehicles and those types of things. All right, so finishing up here with the questions. Common medicines for colds can make you sleepy. Definitely true. Common cold medicines will make some of you very drowsy. I know that Gravol, for example, will just knock you right out. I mean, not you, but it does me. And if I'm taking a red-eye flight, I take Gravol because it just like puts me to sleep. What should you do if you become sleepy while driving? You should pull over, take a nap. You should try and get some sleep somewhere, but don't continue driving if you're sleepy, because there's a really high possibility that you're going to fall asleep. And know as well that it's not just the middle of the night when you're driving. The other time that you could be sleepy could be the middle of the afternoon, because our biological clock goes down and we get tired, and there's a lot of single vehicle crashes that occur in early afternoon because people fall asleep at the wheel. Okay, coffee and a little fresh air will help a drinker sober up. That's definitely false. What is hazardous material placards? These are placards that go on the side of a load that is transporting dangerous goods to identify to first responders what's in the unit, what is burning, what is leaking, what is emitting gas, or whatever is happening to the load at that time. So this is what the placards are for. So that answers number 5. Number 6. What is sleep debt? Sleep debt, you can't bank sleep. If you're tired, you got to get some sleep. But unfortunately, you can go into sleep debt. If you're pushing yourself for long periods of time, eventually you'll go into sleep debt. And I have experienced sleep debt when I was driving truck. I could only drive truck for 3 or 4 months at a time, and then I had to go home and sleep for a few weeks to catch up on my sleep. Okay, what are the danger signals of drowsy driving? Closing your eyes, they go out of focus, your head's nodding all the time, you start chewing your fingernails, all kinds of actions and whatnot like that. So there are different signs and characteristics for everybody, but take note of what those are when you're driving drowsy, and those will help you to stay safe and not fall asleep at the wheel. Quick review of the New York State CDL Manual, Chapter 2, which is driving safely. As you can see here, there is a lot of content in this chapter. Vehicle inspection, basic control of your vehicle, shifting gears, seeing, communicating, controlling speed. There is a lot of information in this one chapter. And essentially, this is all of the information from a PDIC course, a Professional Development Improvement course, that many CDL drivers have to take. And essentially what I'm going to say is the 4 basic fundamental components of this are speed management, space management, observation, and communication. And if you get those, you can pass a road test, you can drive defensively. You have to manage space. In the event of an emergency, it's safer and quicker to drive out of an emergency situation than it is to brake. So you need to manage space around your vehicle. As a CDL driver, you need to observe and scan, and you need to scan well ahead. That way you can see what other traffic is doing. You can predict traffic patterns and the actions of other road users. So that is important. Driving in inclement weather, driving at night, road rage, distracted driving, these are all part and parcel of learning how to drive, and learning how to drive well and driving defensively and staying out of trouble as a commercial driver. Okay, driving in the winter, driving in hot weather, railway crossings, mountain driving, and driving in emergencies and anti-lock brakes and skid control. These are another section of the PDIC course, and this section of driving safely. Fires, and then things that can impair your vision or your ability to drive, alcohol, drugs, and medication. And know that prescribed and over-the-counter medication is the number one reason that commercial drivers are impaired while driving. Sleep debt. Sleep debt is not getting enough sleep, and that you're tired all of the time, okay? Hazard materials rules for all commercial drivers. If you're driving vehicles that are transporting dangerous goods, you have to have a TDG certificate. You need to know that the vehicle has to have placards on it, and you have to have paperwork, and the paperwork has to be left on the seat or in the driver's door if you're driving that vehicle and it's left unattended for a while. So if you have any questions about any of this, I know that there's a lot of information here. There's a lot of questions. It's a really big chapter. There's a lot of stuff in this chapter. Leave me a comment down in the comment section there and ask me a question. I'll be more than happy to get back to you. Send me an email, rick@smartdrivetest.com, and go through this. Just take your time. Write down the sections. As I said, get some of those flashcards. Write on the front what you're trying to remember, and then on the back, write the details, and then just quiz yourself as you're sitting around, at the mall waiting for your spouse or whatnot. And all of that will help you out for passing this chapter on driving safely and all of the information that's contained in this chapter. Question for my smart drivers: are you getting your CDL license to drive a bus? What kind of bus? Or a truck? And what kind of truck and what kind of work are you looking to do as a CDL driver? Leave a comment down in the comment section there. All of that helps out the new drivers working towards getting a CDL license. As well, head over to the Smart Drive Test website and pick up the pre-trip inspection fast course. That will help you to pass your pre-trip inspection for your CDL license. As I said, there's questions in there about doing the pre-trip inspection. There's specific information about the path of travel around the vehicle. There's also a form that will give you specific wording and actions that you need to be successful on a pre-trip inspection. One more thing, head over to the Facebook Smart Drive Test Mastermind group and sign up for that. You'll find the link down in the description there, and share your information and your knowledge with other drivers about getting a CDL license and the challenges that you've had getting your license and becoming a CDL driver, and what kind of work that you're looking to do, because all of that shared knowledge really helps us all out and makes us move forward and makes us all better drivers to be safe on our roadways. I'm Rick with Smart Drive Test. Thanks very much for watching. Good luck in your road test, and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great day. Bye now. The chair squeaks right there. I gotta oil the chair.